Good evening. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission's December 11th, 2023 meeting. And at this point in time, I call it meeting to order. And if we'd please start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And at this time, I'd like to introduce the members of the commission that are here this evening. To my immediate right is James Fitzsimmons, commission member. Next to Jim is Jeff Cohan, also a commission member. To my immediate left is David Perretta, who's an alternate on the commission. And next to him is Joseph Sanders, who is a new member on this commission. He's just been recently appointed as an alternate on the commission. So, Joe, welcome. I don't need to. And at the lower table, the staff table to my left is Cheryl Ann Tubby, and next to Cheryl Ann is Kevin Pagini, our town planner. And I'm Jim Seichter, the chairperson of this commission. Before I get into our agenda, there's several items that are not going to be heard this evening. The first item is on our agenda is a public hearing, number 5 on the agenda. It's a zone change, R18 to DD40, Lost and Found Ventures, LLC, 10 Mansion Road. That's not going to be heard this evening. The applicant requested additional time to make his presentation or prepare for his presentation to the commission. Next item is item number 6, special permit, restaurant retail office to restaurant retail office residential, J. Ahearn, at 300 Church Street, Yalesville. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pagini, but the signs, the legal notice signs had not been placed on that property. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the final one is number 8 on our agenda. It's a site plan, retail to restaurant to residential, Colony Square LLC, 28 North Colony Street. And again, with that, the applicant requested that the application not be heard until our January meeting. And before I get to our approving our minutes and the first items to be considered on our agenda, you know, at this point in time, I'd like to take a moment and recognize Sandy Smart. She's the chief clerk at the Planning and Zoning Office. I'd like to recognize her for her dedication to the town. Ms. Smart will be retiring at the beginning of next month. Ms. Smart has worked for the Planning and Zoning Commission office since 1997 and has been an integral part of how the commission receives their planning and zoning packets and information each month. You know, I'd like to thank Ms. Smart on behalf of the town and the commission for many years of service and hard work with the town. Sandy's last day in the office will be January 2nd, so feel free to drop by to the Planning and Zoning Office to wish Sandy well. And again, the commission is certainly very grateful for her service to the commission as well to the town. So with that, our next item would be to consider for approval the minutes of our November 13th, 2023 meeting. Any commission members with any additions, corrections before I ask for a motion to approve? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted from our November 13th, 2023 meeting.
Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? And with that, it brings us to our first item to be considered this evening. It's continuation of a public hearing, a special permit revision for 8 vacuums, 8 feet in height by N. Komal at 895 North Colony Road. If the applicant would please come forward. And Mr. Fitzsimmons, if you would please note all correspondence, all additional correspondence for the record.
A memorandum was received from Scott Shipman from the Water and Sewer Division on 8/27/23, no comment. We received a no comment memo from Allison Kopinski, the town engineer, on 11/21/23. And we've also received the sign-off sheet from the Fire Department, Health Department, Wetlands Department on the same application received in the office on November 29th, 2023. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. And if the applicant would please introduce himself and give us an extensive presentation of his application, much like he did for a similar application last month.
Jeremy Grossman, 6 Lorry Lane, Wallingford. We're just looking to put the 8-foot booms up to complement our vacuums and make it easier for our customers to use.
Good. Thank you. Commission members with any questions on the application? Seeing none, Mr. Pacini, questions, comments on the application?
No further comments.
This is a public hearing. Any members of the public would like to speak on the application, please raise your hand so you can be acknowledged. Seeing none, bring it back to the applicant if you'd like to say anything else.
I'm all set, thank you.
There you go. At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing for application 413-23.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
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 And yes, now I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve a special permit revision, Komal, 895 North Colony Road, application 413-23, special permit revision and site plan approval, request to add 8 total vacuum booms, 8 feet in height, where 4 currently exist at an existing car wash facility located at 895 North Colony Road on plans entitled Site Plan 895 North Colony Road, dated 7/28/2023, and revised to 8/18/2023. And the condition of approval is 6 copies of the approved final plans will be forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Office.
We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohen.
Excuse me, is there discussion on the part of the commissioners?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was particularly disturbed by this after-the-fact application. I refreshed my memory and found that when the original application was approved, the commission opposed the larger booms and said, no, you have to stay with the our original plan, which is 4-foot booms. Also found today that on the original plan, there was a handicap spot that's been moved, and a vacuum cleaner has been installed in that space. The standard, or a standard for approval of a after-the-fact application is whether or not a commissioner or a commission would have approved that plan had it been presented originally. And the commission said no, they would not approve it the way they wanted it. And I've gone by the building, and that's nothing that I did not have a chance to approve because I was an alternate. But that's something I would not have approved. And so on this commission, on this motion, I'm going to have to vote no, and I urge the other members of the commission to vote no also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And we'll continue the voting on the application. Yes, Mr. Cohen.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
No.
The application's been approved. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Brings us next to our next item. It's again, public hearing, item number 2, re-subdivision for 1 lot at 5 Research Parkway, Wallingford, LLC, 7 Research Parkway. Mr. Fitzsimmons, if you would please read the legal notice and note all correspondence for the record.
Legal notice, the following public hearings will be heard at the Wallingford Planning and Zoning Commission's meeting of Monday, December 11th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Robert F. Parisi Council Chambers of Town Hall located at 45 South Main Street. Number 101-23, re-subdivision request for 5 Research Parkway LLC to subdivide and create a 5.65-acre lot with an existing daycare facility and a 174.2-acre lot from a 179.85-acre parcel, WI Watershed Interchange District. And correspondence was received from the engineering department on November 21st, 2023. Additional correspondence was received from the Department of Engineering on November 1st, 2023. There was a sign-off sheet from the town department heads received November 29th, 2023 from Fire, Health Departments and Electric Division. Also, there was a interdepartmental referral received from the town environmental planner on 11/30/2023. And finally, comments were received from the Wallingford Fire Department Fire Marshal's Office on December 1st, 2023. And we also received correspondence from a Jane Ronca, 54 High Hill Road, on December 5th, 2023. And additional correspondence received on the same date, December 5th, 2023, from the town engineer, Allison Kopinski. And finally, we received a report to the Planning and Zoning Commission from the Inlands and Wetlands and Watercourses Commission on Friday, December 7th, 2023. And that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. If the applicant would please introduce himself and begin your presentation.
Hi, I'm Jeff Checkaway with Calare Properties on behalf of the ownership, and BL Companies is here with me as well. And I think it was pretty simply stated in Mr. Fitzsimmons' review that we're looking to do a re-subdivision of the daycare facility that's on site, a little more than 5 acres, and I can have our engineer present that information in any further detail that you're looking for, but we're not proposing to do any work at this time. We're not proposing to change any previous approvals. We're just simply looking to subdivide the daycare parcel that exists on site today.
Okay. Gentlemen, would you like to?
Sure. Good evening. My name is John Schmitz. I'm a civil engineer with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut. Briefly, we subdivided. The plan created a new subdivision to show where we're cutting the piece off. I have a large plan I'd like to just
Absolutely.
show you. So,
Sir, if you could put it up on that easel there so easier for everyone to see. You can pull that right out of there, too.
there we go. So this plan is BS1, is the re-subdivision plan. Depicts the overall 179-acre parcel known as 5 Research Parkway. The subdivided piece will be 5.5 acres, 5.8 acres actually, and is contained in the central portion of the site and contains the existing or former daycare building, driveway, parking area, has frontage along Research Parkway here, and the lot has been subdivided such that it meets the bulk standards for coverage, width, area, and the like. So the remaining parcel, Lot 1, would be 174 acres. Lot 2, which we anticipate being called 7 Research Parkway, would be 5.8 acres. No work is proposed at this time other than the subdivision. And it's that's basically the extent of the application.
Thank you. Commission members with any questions for the applicant? Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Forgive me, but I'm going to go into my Wayback Machine. This is the old Bristol Myers site, so it's the old Bristol Myers Daycare Center. And I seem to recall during the process where they received approval for what you're asking to re-subdivide, there was discussion regarding utility service to this building. So are the utilities all served by the town of Wallingford?
The building is served by utilities. I'm not sure that they're active right now. They may be shut off.
I can answer that. No, the daycare facility, since we purchased from Bristol Myers, has been in operation. It's currently, there's no tenant there, but we've maintained it and kept it in good working order. When the Bristol Myers facility was demolished, the central utility plant that was part of that fed certain utilities to the daycare facility. So at the time, we had gone through the process and got approvals as well to extend the gas service and new electric service to the daycare facility that were fed from elsewhere on site. It already had city water, city sewer. We actually put in like a new cooling and chiller equipment because that was serviced from the central utility plant that was demolished. So it has all active utilities. It's with Eversource's gas. It's municipal light, water, sewer, fire hydrant, fire sprinkler.
Okay. So it is, in the event the approval is granted for a re-subdivision, the lot could be sold as a standalone?
Correct.
It's not tied to the larger parcel?
Correct.
And if I recall at the time, maybe it was during the application that the utility was somehow tied for the two facilities. So
Correct.
now it's separate, standalone. If you get the re-subdivision, potentially it could be sold off.
Correct.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Other commission members? Oh, you need to put your mic on.
Not sure how to do that.
Oh, just,
The information packet from Town Hall mentions that no survey was submitted. Has one been submitted now?
it's off. Forward.
Yep.
There you go.
Thank you, newbie. So, in the packet from Town Hall, item number 1 says no survey was submitted to the IWWC or PZC. Has one been submitted as of the meeting?
I mean, I could let you answer that. I think
Yeah,
there was
I
some confusion.
believe
from,
Bill Fries,
Yes.
who isn't here tonight, had followed up and submitted the survey document, stamped document.
Yes, I have a stamped document. I don't know if Aaron does, but I would hope at this point, with everything that went
did-
on with the Wetlands Commission, I would think that, yes.
So that the document that you're talking about was from the report from the wetlands, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then, Mr. Pagini, you indicated that you've received that, is that correct?
Correct, yes, I have a survey.
Okay, so we have the survey.
It mentions in there that the survey information is of interest to their office. Do we need to allow time for the office to review and comment on that?
Oh, yeah, I received a survey quite a while ago. I think there was some confusion with wetlands. So I don't think it had all of the drainage easements and outlet control structures and basins that she wanted. So she wanted them to resurvey it because there was a basin that was missing. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, the
Jeff?
information was added to the plan.
So the bottom line is, Mr. Pagini, we're squared away on the survey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other commission members? I know there was a, Mr. Pagini, there was a question from a member of the public concerning the traffic study that was done, I guess for 5 Research Parkway when we approved that application. And I guess the question was if the traffic to be generated by the daycare was included in that. And correct me if I'm wrong, but our town engineer indicated that traffic study, in fact, did include traffic that would be included or could be generated from the from the daycare. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, that's correct, and I believe she responded directly to the citizens that put in the
Okay.
email, so.
All right. With that, if there's no other questions from commission members, this is a public hearing. Any members of the public would like to speak on the application, please raise your hand, come forward with your name and address. Yes, please come forward and state your name and address and your comments.
Good evening. My name is Jim Wolf. I'm a member of the Economic Development Commission, and I just wanted to quickly say that we support this proposal before you. It seems like a good idea to split it off and go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the applicant if you'd like to make any further comments before I ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I can also just add a few items too. We were with the Inland Wetlands Watercourses Commission on Wednesday last week, and they approved the re-subdivision with conditions that we make a couple minor changes to the plans that were requested. They asked us to add 2 placards where the wetland designations will be at a location determined later by the environmental planner. And I think the intent was to essentially leave it open in case there were any other changes. We would be required to resubmit an updated drawing or documentation after the fact. But we did create 2 easements on the property, one for conveyance of stormwater to flow through the culvert that exists today under the driveway of the daycare from essentially the larger site through that culvert back onto the larger site. And then there was a second blanket easement for stormwater to flow from really anywhere, but this mainly an outlet control structure from the daycare site onto the 5 research larger site.
That's it? Thank you, gentlemen. At this point in time, if there's no further comments, questions from commission members or from Mr. Pagini, I'd entertain a motion to close our public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing for application 101-23.
I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons, voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes, at this point in time, I entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve application re-subdivision 5/7 Research Parkway, 5 Research Parkway, Wallingford, LLC, application 101-23. Re-subdivision request for 5 Research Parkway, LLC, to subdivide a 5.65 acre lot from a 179.85 acre parcel on map entitled Re-subdivision Plan dated 10/31/2023, subject to the following conditions of approval. Number 1, all comments from Aaron O'Hare, environmental planner, dated 11/30/2023. Number 2, comments from the town engineer, Allison Kapuscinski, dated 11/1/2023. Number 3, comments from senior engineer Scott Shipman, Water and Sewer Division, dated 10/27/2023. And number 4, 6 copies of the approved final plans forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Office.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? If I could, I'd just like to add one other item. When you indicated all comments from Aaron O'Hare, environmental planner, dated 11/30/2023, there's also an additional memo from her dated 12/7/2023. So if that could be added.
And I'll add that additional memo from Aaron O'Hare dated 12/27,
12/7/2023.
12/7/2023.
Good, thank you. With that, if there's no further comments on it, begin voting on our motion by Mr. Cohan, please.
Yes.
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 And yes, application has been approved, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to our next item. It's a continuation of a public hearing, special permit, nursing home and multifamily residential, 55 LLC, 55 Kondracki Lane. If the applicant would please come forward. Begin preparing for the presentation. And Mr. Fitzsimmons, if you'd note all correspondence.
Certainly. A memorandum was received from Janice Small Corporation Counsel dated November 8th, 2023, addressed to the Planning and Zoning Commission. On November 8th, 2023, a memo was received from Janice Small, Wallingford Corporation Counsel, addressed to members of the Wetlands and Watercourses Commission and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. On November 22nd, 2023, a memo was received from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, Wallingford Water and Sewer, addressed to the Planning Office. On November 13th of this year, an email was received from Bob Doolittle of 4 Mellor Road. On November 29th, 2023, a memo was received from Allison Kopinski, Wallingford's town engineer. On November 29th, we received a planning and zoning sign-off sheet from the Health Department. On December 1st of this year, we received a report from the Office of the Wallingford Fire Marshal. Also on December 1st, we received another memorandum from the Wallingford Fire Department regarding an inspection report, 55 Kondracki Lane Residential. On December 7th, 2023, a memorandum was sent from Aaron O'Hare, Wallingford's environmental planner, to Kevin Benini, Wallingford's town planner. On November 30th, 2023, the office received a copy of a proposal from Hazelwood, Inc., addressed to Jeff Ropp regarding 55 Kondracki. On December 8th, the town planner received, with a copy to the law department, a email from Bob and Rhonda Doolittle at 4 Mellor Road. On December 11th, today, we received a letter from a Pamela Campariel, from 7 Sylvan Way, addressed to whom it may concern at the Wallingford Planning and Zoning. We also received today an email from a James Cassidy of Hallisey, Pearson, and Cassidy Engineering. And finally, we received a email from Alex Boutasiulius, if I mispronounced that, from the Wallingford Electric Division, Chief Engineer, and it was addressed to Kevin Benini, Wallingford Town Planner. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. If the applicant would reintroduce himself and continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For your record, my name is Dennis Senaviva. I'm an attorney with the Senaviva Law Firm. I represent the owner applicant. To my left is Amy Ropp, who is one of the representatives of the owner. And to her left is Jim Cassidy from Hallisey, Pearson, and Cassidy. He's the project engineer. Behind me in the audience is Matt Baldino, the traffic engineer who prepared the report from Solly Engineering for this application. Just by quick overview, Mr. Chairman, we were here last month, as I'm sure you recall. The parcel is 11.58 acres in size. It is currently developed with a 69,900 square foot building that was most recently occupied and operated as a 180-bed nursing facility. The parcel is zoned R18. The building sits about 300 feet back from the road, and we comply with all the other bulk requirements, things of that sort. Last time, the issue that was left to be addressed, Mr. Chair, was the outstanding cease and correct order that had been issued in 2018 by the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission. So we have returned to that commission on December 6th and received the closeout approval. They've approved, and that's one of your exhibits, I believe, your report from Aaron O'Hare, environmental planner, so that together with the memo from Janice Small, your Corporation Counsel. It was addressed to both this commission and the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission dated November 8th, and the report from Allison Kapusinski from Engineering dated the same date addressed to both commissions. They indicated that the plan that had been submitted to handle the cease and correct order from June 2018 met the requirements, and they closed out that cease and correct order. Interestingly, they put as a condition that the work that we proposed as part of, which we showed you last month, we were happy to do it again, but it's that third culvert. They wanted to make sure that all that work was done before a CO could be issued. That was one of the conditions that we saw in the wetlands approval. One of the things that you noted, or Commissioner Fitzsimmons noted in the list of correspondence, is a proposal that's been accepted by the applicant from Hazelwood Construction. They're the company that's been retained or hired to do this culvert work, because we wanted to give this commission a sense of the seriousness of the applicant. When the applicants come in, you know the history, I'm not going to repeat it too much, but just to say that, you know, this was something that was not envisioned, certainly during the course of purchase. It was actually not even envisioned during the course of seeking approval for this adaptive reuse. It wasn't until, I think, the day before, the Friday before your Monday meeting, that we learned of this outstanding order. And then, you know, there were a couple options available to the owner, but they chose to forge ahead and come up with a plan at their cost and effort, with very collaborative effort on the part of the town, honestly, which was welcoming. And they came up with a plan that does meet the conditions of that June 2018 cease and correct order, when a portion of the driveway collapsed, the culvert collapsed. So we're back here. You have that report. We're happy to present anything to you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, that you'd like to either hear again or have us make more clear. But again, the application is a fairly straightforward one. But for this involvement of the 5-year-old wetlands order, we would not have had to have gone to wetlands. There is no activity within the upland review area or wetlands area other than the cease and correct order approval. The number of units that have been proposed for this development are less than your regulations would have provided. We didn't want to go with the maximum number of units, because that would have caused us to increase impervious area. We're trying to keep open space. As I mentioned, the building coverage is only 5.9%, where 15% is permitted in this zone. And we also wanted to give assurances, to the extent that you wanted them, that the units will be market rate. These are not affordable, not that there's anything wrong with that, but these are market rate units. They're going to be attractive, and I think a good project for the town. So basically, Mr. Chairman, our position is that we've complied with the requirements of your special permit for adaptive reuse. We've complied with all of the limiting factors in that regulation, section 6.16 of your regs, and we have closed out the outstanding 5-year-old cease and correct order. So we're here to entertain any assistance you can provide.
Good. Thank you. Commission members with additional questions for the applicant. Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I appreciate the comments on the culvert situation, and I do think the applicant, is moving forward with that in a very positive method, and I was happy to see that in the packet. Last meeting, that was my biggest concern, and I think for me that has been satisfied. Okay. However, one small additional thing did come up today, and that's the Wallingford Electric Division. And apparently there's an inability, and I don't know if you have seen this memo.
507.
Yeah. So maybe if you want to discuss that and, see where that stands, because it sounds like that will also be a condition of approval to, get that additional electrical line in or whatever, is going to please the Wallingford Electric.
And I think that was the point, Commissioner. I think there was some, I guess lawyers like to call it wiggle room in that memo. We're looking to do something that's positive, that's productive and efficient. And so certainly, the electric division is important in part of that narrative, part of that discussion. So we're aware of that last minute correspondence. We're glad it came in now as opposed to after. We'll be happy to address whatever is a prudent course to make this project work.
Okay, that sounds good. When I do the motion, I'll put some verbiage in there.
Thank you.
So.
Other commission members? Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear, and I pulled out your map because we've been discussing this, it seems like, for a long time, and it's already December. I want to begin with the correspondence received from the Doolittles. They sent us 2 emails. Have you been privy to that?
I have not, Amy Ropp, owner, I have not seen the latest one that if I heard right, was December 8th? Was that?
November 13th, and a subsequent one received December 8th.
I have not seen November or December. I did see one email from July, possibly, maybe June. We're going back.
And again, I think I'm not involved in the office and the staff, so I'm assuming you have what we have. And as you know, we arrived this evening, and you get something at 5:07 after hours. So it is. I don't like the late breaking because this is not news to anybody. We've been talking about this applications for months. Do you want copies of the?
Can I come and get one?
You should have copies of the emails. Because my question, if I could talk before.
There's also a few things that I've just highlighted on that, so I think those probably will be what Mr. Fitzsimmons may be asking you about.
Okay. You want me to talk? You want me to stall? No.
I can multi. I'm okay.
Yeah, just so you know where I'm coming from, and I'll give a little intro to give you a chance to read it. Since this application started, I'm familiar with the site. I've been out there. Every time it rains, I think I should go out there. I will tell you, I was there this morning, because we had very heavy rain overnight. I did not realize until I was preparing, for tonight's meeting and was reading the Doolittle's emails that was the house I kept looking at. I kept looking at that house, and then he sent a picture. I'm like, oh, that's, because I'm thinking, who that is. He has a request in his email for some screening. And I've always been a fan of trees and a fan of screening. And I just pulled out your landscape plan, and I look at his email, and I've been to the site. I don't see, because it's pavement. It's between the driveway, then you have curbing, and then you have the fence. So I don't know if screening is even something you contemplated, and I don't know if it's even beyond the driveway, because the picture he shared in the email was, obviously what I saw over the weekend and saw again this morning, and I wasn't sure if you had a chance to review his email. So it was it's a general question of, is screening an option?
I just could interject also, I think you'll see in that, in one of the correspondence, I believe the Doolittles indicated that there was some conversation with, I believe, some member of your team concerning possibly putting a berm and then putting some arborvitaes on that berm, whatever. So perhaps you'd like to comment on that.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, I think I had heard about this. I get some wind from your planner. There's a couple things going on here, and number one is that, any of the activity in that area might be located within the wetlands or the upland review area. That's a concern that we have, in that location, number one. Number two is, as I understand it from having been at the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Commission meeting on December 6th. I believe the Doolittles also are on that agenda for a violation of work has been done in that watercourse without a permit. So I'm not sure what the Wetlands Commission is going to require of them to remedy whatever, if it's accurate, if that's, but I know it's there's something pending. So, and I think if you've looked at our site plan, our position is that the Doolittle fence is several feet on our property. I think if Mr. Cassidy can point out to that. So we're not looking to be a bad neighbor, but I think in terms of whatever we can do that is appropriate, we're happy to interact with them.
Thank you. If I might, I mean, I guess my concern was I wanted to make sure you had seen the letter, because I think, fences make good neighbors, quite frankly, and I do think, because having been out to the site, I didn't realize, I didn't make the connection of where they were, and then I was reading the letters, I'm like, oh, that's the house, because I kept looking at that and looking down into the area. It is, but again, if your neighbor cuts down all their trees and that was your privacy, it happens. I mean, I experienced that myself, many years ago. I'm fortunate to have good neighbors now. So, the other thing I would mention, just if I could, Mr. Chairman, to stay on the record. So I would be in favor of any additional screening along the driveway side, but I realized it wasn't there all these other years, and I just that's it could be something as simple as privacy slats in the chain link fence. That is screening, but of course I always like vegetation, but I was looking to see, and I'm not getting into their fences on our property discussion, but I think anything that could be done to address screening would be appreciated. I understand, if I could, to talk about something different, I mean, because I think we're wrapping, is this application has generated a lot of interest. I know we've heard members of the public talk about the traffic. We received a letter from someone who, said they don't want people using the road. I've driven out there in school time. I've driven out there in the afternoon. I have friends who live on Meller, friends in that area. Anytime we hear traffic, or certainly I hear traffic, that's a police matter. Zoning-wise, this particular use, to go back to a residential use, is consistent with our zoning book. There is no question about that. But I do know neighbors don't like change. People don't like change. My wife would tell you I don't like change. But I do think this use from a nursing home, and now an empty shuttered nursing home, to residential development is consistent with with our planning and zoning regulations. So I know you're doing what you can. I did have a couple questions looking at my notes from the last couple of meetings in this, just kind of a yes/no type thing. There's no plans for a pool, correct? No.
No.
Not that I'm looking for a place for my sons to live, but no playground equipment or outdoor area, so it is strictly residential, in the building type stuff, right?
Correct. There are two very small walkways,
Right.
but that's not at all considered a playground of sorts.
Okay. And if I understand correctly, because one of the neighbors mentioned at a meeting I was just reviewing, this is apartment living, not condos, right? So it'd be a single owner apartment. They'll all be rentals.
Correct.
Okay. And just to confirm on the record, because this is a question I heard most often at these meetings, it's market rate.
Our application is for market rate.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Other commission members?
Yes, just a few comments, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, one of the problems that our commission is faced with is affordable housing. We find that one of the problems we have in Wallingford is that you have market rate people living in housing that would otherwise be affordable, and that there is a need for market rate housing so that they can get out of the market rate people can live in market rate housing, and then excuse me, free up more space for affordable housing. So that I certainly support this plan. I think it's a good idea, and I think you'll get a vacant piece of property back to productive use.
Thank you. Other commission members? Mr. Pacini, any comments?
I had suggested landscaping quite a while ago. I don't know if it ever made it to the site plan, but I agree with Mr. Fitzsimmons. Any further screening would be 100% helpful in this scenario. So I don't know if the commission would want the culvert changes to be addressed at this point, or I think if everybody is okay with wetlands, then I'm okay with it too.
Okay, at this particular point in time, again, this is it's a public hearing. Any members of the public would like to speak on the application, please come forward. Yes, gentleman in the back. Any other members of the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Jim Wolf, the Economic Development Commission. We had the opportunity to review this a while ago in our commission meeting, and we were definitely in favor of bringing this property back to life. It seems like it will be a good move for the neighborhood, and it'll add to the neighborhood too. And I think based on what your discussion is tonight, as far as having some screening, I think that we would support that also. Thank you.
Thank you. And the gentleman in the back. Other members of the public? Anyone else on this side? Okay.
Evening, William Lennon, 65 Kondracki Lane, Wallingford, Connecticut. At the last meeting, they had said they were going to do something about their lighting plan. I haven't seen anything yet in the meeting about that. The attorney mentioned it. The other thing was toward the end of the meeting, it was kind of getting contentious, and I can understand that, but is this their private driveway? You know, like a dam with 2 straws in it, now you're going to have 3 straws? And it's like the old Montgomery wards, good, better, and best. They had the catalog you could pick your Christmas present out of. And there was a lot of engineering thrown around last meeting, and it's kind of hard to have, as a layman, put your head around it, but there are bad floods coming. You can just look at Montpelier earlier this year. You can look at upstate New York during Irene, horrible floods. I bought hill that goes down to a stream that if you want to see it turn into a pond, I got a video of it from today, backing up. And is it really adequate to handle potential further increased weather events of magnitude that makes even a 100-year storm look bad? As a property owner, I just look at some of the things like, is the land being subducted by the flow of the creek, especially when it backs up into a pond and then drains back out? Are you weakening the roots of my trees? Is my foundation subducting? I'm getting cracks in my foundation. This stuff's been going on for 30 years, so I'm not looking to point a finger, but I am hoping for the best remedy possible. And engineering usually goes by money. So is it good? Could there be better? Best is usually always off the table because it's too expensive. My other point is there's a lot of bright light coming off that building. You can kind of see it down Kondracki as you approach my house. And when my backyard's lit up, I think it got dim for a while, but it's still an issue for me as just the humble neighbor. And this is probably my last opportunity to actually voice this. And then my third kind of concern is, what are they doing for trash? Because when it was a nursing home, they got Cisco like on Monday, and they got trash on Friday. It was 2 dumpsters, and that was the routine. Like 6:30 in the morning, you'd see the Cisco truck with the food dumped out, 1 kitchen, and then the dumpsters would fill up, and then you'd get 1 removal. And that was their cycle of life for trash. And it was always on the north side, down low by the creek. I could look out my window in the back of the house and see it. I watched it many a time. What's it going to be like now with 71 individual or multiple of 71 people living there? Are there going to be multiple places to dump trash, or is everybody going to have to come down to the creek area and put it in 1 dumpster area? Just kind of like something I'd like to ask the question and see if I can get an answer.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate all your time.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. First of all, as far as, sir, as far as the driveway and all of that, that is on their property. That's their driveway. But if the applicant would just address first the issue as far as lighting.
So a lighting plan has been submitted. Mr. Cassidy is here to address, or at least explain it to the commission and to Mr. Lennon.
If you would, sir.
So we are proposing to replace all the light fixtures that are out there with new high-efficiency, full cutoff fixtures that will spread the light onto the ground. I think what's been referred to many times is there's a security light on the back of the building, a floodlight on the back of the building, and as part of the modifications, that gets removed. So there won't be that glaring light on the back. We submitted a lighting plan that demonstrates that there's no spray of light onto adjoining properties. It'll all be directed into the site.
Good. Thank you. And now, the trash, your refuse collection.
We were proposing to keep the same location that exists. There's a concrete pad that the healthcare facility formerly used. It is correct. It is at the north end of the building. So that's what we're proposing to keep, unless there's any other direction. But it's been in existence ever since the healthcare facility was created. So we're proposing to keep that same location.
Thank you. Other members of the public, I believe this young lady on the right, and then we'll go to you, sir.
Kathleen Johnson, representing the owner of 421 Long Hill Road. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, but my question is just, have the number of units of occupancy changed? I think it was a total of 71 or something, and because of parking, there was some consideration about the parking area not going to be big enough or just barely meeting the minimum for what was needed. So I'm just wondering if the number of units has been decreased.
No, there's been no change in the number of units.
Is there a change to the amount of parking area? Because there was also consideration about where snowplow overflow was going to go.
Yeah, that was the snow. I believe Mr. Fitzsimmons brought that question up at the last meeting, and that was that was addressed. But if the applicant would like to,
That's when I defer to the engineer, Mr. Chairman.
So the number of parking spaces remains the same. Based upon your zoning requirements, we provide 1.75 for the studio and the one-bedroom units, and then 2.25 for the two-bedroom units. So in total, we need to provide 134 spaces. That number is remaining the same. I think as Dennis had mentioned before, it's nice to see that this Planning and Zoning Commission has the foresight to actually require more parking spaces than a typical municipality. I tell you, I work in municipalities all throughout the state of Connecticut, and usually the average is 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit, no matter whether it's one or two bedrooms. So you definitely require more, but I think you had the foresight to understand that you typically need more for this type of development. I tell you, there's other projects I've done in local municipalities right around here where we do go in with the 1.5, and at the end of the day, we typically find it tight, so we actually go back for modifications to bring it up to numbers that are more consistent with your zoning regulations. So I feel that this number is more appropriate, what you have in your regulation.
and just if you would just comment again just on the snow. I know we talked about it at the last meeting.
So
far
snow
as
would
the
go
snow.
around the perimeter of the parking lot. We have several linear feet of perimeter parking area and a lot of embankments along that side. So we have more than ample area to store snow. As I mentioned last time, the areas you typically have problems storing snow is when you have large shopping center parking lots and you have vast connections of parking rows and you really have no place to put it other than parking spaces. But this will have a very significant perimeter area that we can disperse of the snow.
Thank you. Other members of the public? I believe this gentleman on the left. And after this gentleman, are there any other members of the public who'd like to comment on the application? Seeing none?
Good evening. I'm Jeff Ropp. You saw my name on one of the quotes for the culvert repair. I also was a gentleman that had the discussions with Mr. Doolittle about the screening or potential screening. That was before he tried to extort $185,000 from me to stop this project. And that was before we put our application in. Once we put our application in, that's when he made you aware of the cease and correct. And we're here today because of that. Because for 6 years, no one had any trouble with the flooding. In fact, the flooding conditions below our culvert improved. I spoke to 3 neighbors who had described that, oh, we don't have quite the same problem anymore. Okay. You had 1 complaint in 6 years from an upstream neighbor that was complaining about concrete in the river. Not that his property was being flooded, but that he thought that was causing issues. Now we're here. We've agreed to put a culvert in. It's going to cause more problems, most likely, downstream. But that's what you want. That's what we're going to do. As far as Mr. Doolittle's screening, or screening in general, I lived in Wallingford for 40 years. I drove by that property probably 1,000 times. And I never saw that building. Winter or summer, I could never see that building. You still can't see that building. So when you talk about screening, we plan on putting a nice roof on top, because the only people that see this building are the people that are above it, okay? And Mr. Doolittle. Mr. Doolittle, who already has a 6-foot fence and has cluttered his yard with construction equipment. I'm surprised he would be concerned about what this building looks like if you look at his backyard, okay? So the truth is, I did discuss possibly putting a berm in. That's before I realized that we are too close to wetlands, and that would start a whole new headache, okay? I also don't believe that it's going to have much impact. I need to take you back. This building was built in 1974. Mr. Doolittle purchased and built his house in 1971. That building was there. That building was an eyesore then, possibly. It's more of an eyesore now. What we're doing is going to dress that building up. It's going to look good. Landscaping we will do will be around the building. But I can't landscape into the wetland area. It would be useless to landscape to the street side of the wetland area. So the only spot you're talking about, a distance of probably about 60 feet, that he has a 6-foot fence there already that's already on our property. So I don't want to be committed to putting up shrubbery that is going to have no impact. It's not going to help anything. It's going to look like an eyesore on our side of his 6-foot fence, okay? So, I mean, I'll leave that to my engineer in the end result, but it seems like a waste, okay? What we will do to dress up that building and all the conditions around it will have a much better impact on Mr. Doolittle's property and all the neighbors surrounding it. That's primarily it. I should also say, you know, I guess I'm too logical. When we went through this whole process, we're talking about hydraulic studies and water flows and 100-year storms that we haven't had in 100 years. This thing is designed to hold back water now with this 3rd pipe going in so that the water will still be retained on the north side of the property. But I want to tell you that right now, in a heavy storm, the water's held back and it impacts our 12 acres 90% of the condition. You put in that 3rd pipe, now the people south, particularly on Meller, I know in the storm in October, she had water right up to her deck. The town or the developer that put in Meller Drive put a spillway in. That area is designed to hold the water back. Right now it's being held back on the north side of our culvert. Now you're just going to increase the volume on the south side of the culvert. I don't see how things really change with this whole design, except that more people that are in lower areas are going to be affected much greater than the people to the upstream side. And the ironic part is that the pipe that feeds our area and the area north of us is only a 48-inch pipe coming under Woodland Avenue, Woodland Road. So, you know, how much water are you going to get and how fast can you get it out? It's ironic that we're dealing with this at this point. I also want to mention that I believe that we've been run through the ringer a little bit with this whole thing, being surprised in the 11th hour, and then thrown back to wetlands. You know, this whole delay has cost us a considerable amount of money. The pipe is a small amount, the price of the pipe compared to these delays. And now I understand that there may be some discussions about holding back our permits until this pipe work is completed. Now, I have a problem with that on two fronts. And one is that the process in wetlands, if we did that pipe tomorrow, would probably take 120 days for them to sign off on it before you would sign off on it. We can't afford those kind of delays, okay? And I think that's unreasonable. We have done everything you've asked. We've already contracted to get the work done. That work is subject to weather, primarily. We'd like to do it right away. We know that we can't go across the opening to do work on the building if we don't put that pipe in. I won't say first because I don't know what weather's going to do in the next 30 days, let alone the next 3 days or the next 3 months. But we are poised as soon as the materials are on site to get that work done. I think you all know the contractor in town. I welcome you calling him. I've dealt with him for many years, okay? So our goal is to get it done. But my goal is not to be held up on the rest of this project. We've already lost a year because of this process being dragged out, okay? So I would ask you to consider any voting towards holding back permits until that pipe is completely done. I would expect you would bond it, and I would expect that we wouldn't get a CO until that pipe work is complete. But I think it's unreasonable to ask us not to apply for permits until that pipe is done. All right, that's my last comment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public? I would just make a comment on the, when we're talking about the landscaping and all of that, the fence, just so I'm clear, that vinyl, it's grayish vinyl fence, that is on your property, is that correct?
Correct.
And there's, correct me if I'm wrong, there's quite a bit of an elevation drop between where that fence is located versus where your property is. Is that fair to say? As far as the elevation, it drops down. So I'm thinking if we're...
As you go down towards the culvert to the water course, yes, there's quite a...
Yeah, so as you go down there, so as far as in that area, even if you were able to put landscaping and a berm in there, it wouldn't do very much as far as providing any screening because of the depth or the drop in the elevation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other members of the public like to make, any members of the commission would like to make any comments before I look to close the public hearing? Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this landscaping is a little bit confusing, and actually I'd like to ask the town planner, if I can, if he is okay right now with what has been submitted as far as a landscaping plan and the plans right now, or would you like something a little more, when I go through the motions?
I mean, if they have the ability to, yes, but if they do not, then I'm not going to force it just because there's a lot of existing vegetation there. But I think our main concerns were kind of up closer to the road. There's not a lot of vegetation up there, and then I'm not sure about directly abutting properties, but I would at least if you could in the motion, if there's the ability to do more landscaping, I guess that's something we can look at.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you.
And again, from my, my perspective, I think Mr. Fitzsimmons pretty much summed things up, I thought, very well as far as his, comments on this application, as far as from the standpoint of traffic, from the standpoint of just taking a property that's been sitting there for quite some time, hasn't been productive, hasn't been used, and now we're returning it, they're putting it into a residential use, and I find that to be very a very positive thing to happen. As far as the requirement to have all of the work done on the culvert before any building permits are issued, I had raised that issue, and listening to the gentleman who just spoke, I think there certainly is some merit to what he said as far as the time that this has taken. Clearly, I don't believe it's an issue that this commission has dragged it on. I think that it was pointed out that there was an issue that was raised that should have been raised some time ago with respect to the issue with the culvert. Unfortunately, it came up, I think, as the attorney mentioned, a day or two before the initial application was going to be heard, and then everyone, I don't want to use the word start scrambling around to see how we go about addressing it. Certainly don't want to point fingers at anyone as far as how this came about, why the delays or whatever. But at least from my perspective, I mentioned in prior meeting, I'd like to see the permits held back until the work was done. But I guess I would certainly revise that and say no certificate of occupancy until that occurred. I don't know how other commission members feel about that, but that's where I would be on that. So if there's no further comments from, yes, Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Mr. Chairman, I never want to miss an opportunity to support you, and thank you for saying that, because I don't want to belabor the point of the culvert and the delay, because it's not, tying it to the CO is more consistent with our normal action than versus tying it to the building permit. So the only question I was going to ask, and I support your suggestion that we tie it to a CO versus a building permit. The only question I have through you, Mr. Chairman, is to the town planner. Is the bond amount sufficient? So if we allow this all, if it gets approved, the bond amount, to me, and I'm not in construction, but the bond amount, would that cover? Would it cover it, so to speak?
I discussed this with Wetlands prior to the culvert, and they said they were going to bond the entirety of the culvert work. So the bonding that we're doing is just for landscaping and the minor modifications on the parking lot.
All right, if I might, and I don't want to discuss. Part of the concern I have is, and again, I've said this before, and I don't like to keep saying this. I'm not town staff, so when they come to get a certificate of occupancy, they're going to the building department, not planning and zoning. And
No, I have to sign off before.
I was going to get there. You have to sign off. So, but we hold the bond, and then Wetlands is holding their own bond. So, and I'm sorry to go there, on the culvert work, that whole bond is with Wetlands,
Correct.
not us.
Yes.
Okay.
I discussed this beforehand, and I kind of was ahead of you on that one, but
Okay.
that's how they wanted to approach it. So
That's who want to approach it.
inland wetlands.
And so is that normal?
Generally, yeah, because the majority of it takes place within the watercourse, so they were comfortable bonding the entirety of all that work.
Okay. And then finally, if I could, Mr. Chairman, through you, I've got a lot of paper on this application. It concerns me, and I just want to say this in the record, it concerns me that the applicant just heard from the electric division after hours today on an email, on an application that we've been hearing for months. That is not a good thing for the town. That's not the applicant's fault, that's not the public's fault, and quite candidly, it's not the commission's fault, because this should be referred, and I know it has been referred into the town, but I think, if I read in the email, they went out there, looked at the site, and said, this pole is unacceptable, and it will require underground electrical. That's not a nice surprise to any applicant, and it kind of led to the question I asked on a prior application about utility work, because We do have our own utilities, but we've got to make sure that the applicant's information is shared with utilities and vice versa. You know, I don't know if it was being discussed and they just finally put an email, and I like the electric division, I like my lights, but I just don't understand why the applicant and we just received their email today.
I don't understand it either. They had months and months and months to comment, and they have not until today, so.
All right.
I-
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Fitzsimmons. I think there's been frustration on certainly, I suspect the applicant as well as members of this commission as far as how certain things just seem to have kind of fallen through the cracks, on this, whether it be you're talking about the electric, we're talking about the culvert, but hopefully that is just an anomaly. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing unless the applicant would like to make any further comments. At this point in time, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing for application 412-23.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Voting beginning with Mr. Cohan.
Yes.
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 And yes. And at this point in time, I'd entertain a motion on the application.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve 55 LLC, 55 Kondracki Lane, application 412-23, special permit and site plan approval request for 55 LLC to convert an existing 180-bed nursing home facility to a multifamily residential building with 71 units located at 55 Kondracki Lane on plans entitled Special Permit Application Adaptive Reuse to Multifamily dated 9/7/2023 and revised to 11/4/2023, subject to the following conditions of approval. Number one, all comments from the fire marshal's office. Number two, all comments from the town planner. Number three, all comments from senior engineer Scott Shipman, Water and Sewer Division. Number four, all comments from Aaron O'Hare, environmental planner. Number five, all comments from Allison Kapuscinski, town engineer. Number six, all site lighting is to be compliant with current zoning regulation standards with no external light spill from the property. Number seven, notification to the Planning and Zoning Office prior to the start of construction on the culvert. Number eight, that the certificate of occupancy not be issued until all the culvert work is completed. Number nine, an erosion and sediment control bond in the amount of $6,500. Number 10, 6 copies of the approved final plans forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Office. Number 11, reasonable screening to be agreed upon between the applicant and the reasonable screening and landscaping to be agreed upon between the applicant and the town planner. And the memo from Wallingford Electric Division Chief Engineer Alex, and you're going to make me say this, Alex Boutsolis, Chief Engineer. These comments will be worked out between the town planner, Wallingford Electric Division, and the applicant to allow for the ability of the Wallingford Electric Division to either get to the poles or have an alternate underground power supply.
Good. We have a motion on the application. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'd start voting on the application.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes.
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 And yes, your application's been approved. Thank you. Certainly thank you for for your patience. Okay, it brings us next to a continuation of a public hearing. It's a zoning text amendment for electric car charging facilities, Gem Property Group in the WI zone. The applicant would please come forward to begin their presentation, and I think we take the exit.
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth Verna. I live at 26 Mapleview Road. I represent Gem Property Group, LLC. I'm going to...
Before you begin, I assume that I'm the guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is an unusual situation. The gentleman, I barely have a quorum, and John Vanoy, who was one of the members that was here that heard the initial application, is not here. But I have members of the public who came out this cold evening to speak about the application. And I'd like to give them the opportunity so that they don't have to come back at January's meeting. Am I allowed to withdraw and ask for a continuance before the vote?
You could continue to next month. You don't necessarily have to withdraw the application. You just have to
So-
ask for an extension.
But if I ask for the extension, is the public allowed to speak?
Mm-hmm. Yes. You could continue the public hearing for another 2 months, I believe, so.
Okay. And before you ask the public to speak, I'd also like to make sure, I guess some housekeeping issues, that you received all the correspondence from the various departments.
Yes, and I can read through our correspondence just to make sure
Just to
that,
make sure, okay.
So I guess I can act as secretary as well. So we have a document from the departments received November 29th, signed off by Fire, Health, Inland Wetlands, and looks like the Wallingford Electric Division. And again, Alex, Chief Engineer, has a note if there's questions on fast or slow charging to contact him. There's an interoffice memorandum from Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, dated November 29th, 2023, Water Sewer Division. We have a memo from Lisa Fontana Tierney, Traffic Engineering, Senior Director. That's I don't see a date on it, but you've been addressed on it. I have a memo from Kevin Pagini, Town Planner, from the Department of Engineering, dated December 4th, 2023. I have another memo from Bob DeMayo, 14 Marie Lane, dated December 6, 2023. I have another memo, traffic memo, dated December 7th, 2023, addressed to Liz Verna from well, it's your traffic engineer.
SRL.
SLR.
SLR, formerly Mylona McBroom, yes.
A memo from Elizabeth Verna to Kevin Pagini, dated, no date on this one. a memo from Gem Property Group, revised 12/8/2023, with the definition of the text change, and a note from Hank Baum dated December 7th, 2023, EDC Planning and Zoning Liaison Committee Chair. And that's all I have.
Okay. Am I allowed to submit something during the meeting?
Sure.
There was a question if we had to notify the adjacent towns if we were within the 500 feet. I think you asked for that. And I did have my engineers as well as Kevin looked into it, and we are not within that. Should I submit this? Or
Yeah, that would be fine.
okay.
I think I included that. I have it in my packet. I don't know if it was part of an email, I think. It was the second page.
Yeah, I thought I did see that.
Okay. Well, I'll leave this with him anyhow.
I think it was the November 16th email from ITE. It was the second page of that. It was from Thomas Daly.
And the other thing I'd like to mention is dated December 8th is a revision to the description for electrical charging facility. And the reason that we added a minimum parking requirement, which actually one of the town staff realized that wasn't in 6.11, so we actually added it to the definition, the minimum parking requirement for the electrical vehicle charging facility. So I'll give my presentation next January, in the new year, I guess, but I don't know if I think there's some people here that.
Yeah, it's a public hearing. If anybody wants to speak, just come up to the microphone. I see one, Mary Mashinsky.
Good evening, members of the commission. Mary Mashinsky, State Rep, 188 South Cherry Street, Wallingford. I'm speaking in favor. This application is actually a very welcome development in my eyes. We know from Bloomberg New Energy Finance that their estimation is nearly 80% of new car sales will be electric by 2040. And consumers, when they make this transition, they'll be looking for easy connection to the grid, so it will ease their range of anxiety as they switch over to this new technology, which will bring cleaner air to our residents. The state of Connecticut is also installing chargers. We're using federal National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure formula grants, about $11 million worth in this fiscal year, to build out charging stations at rest stops on the major highways that run through Connecticut. And if you've been to Wilbercross Parkway, northbound lane in North Haven, you'll see some being put in there right now. There also in Wallingford, we have a few public EV chargers at the train station, at certain auto dealerships, and there's a few at Stop and Shop on the side of the building. Connecticut Green Bank is also helping install EV chargers through CPACE financing. I'm not sure if this applicant is using it, but if you're not aware of it, they are working with developers to do financing for the commercial ones at Green Bank. This private project is, I think, the first one in this area, and it will help the transition for the consumer. And it's very exciting that we are getting one of the first ones in the area. So I hope you will approve it and move us toward this new technology. Thank you, commissioners.
Am I right? I got the same problem, so.
Thank you. Hank Baum, 44 Pearson Drive. I'm also a member of the Economic Development Commission, but tonight I'm speaking personally in favor of this text amendment. As Mary pointed out, I think it's exciting to be one of the first in the area to have something, and I think that having the government support private sector development in the fight against global warming is important. I also wanted to point out to the Commission that as part of the Wallingford POCD strategies, page 44 of that strategy, there is a notation on one of the strategies that says to promote energy conservation through town operations, infrastructure, and services. And the recommended strategy is to support efforts to provide electrical vehicle charging stations at key facilities, including retail hubs, large offices, town parking facilities, and the train station. So I think it's in line with our POCD, and I would hope that you support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Mr. DeMaio?
Bob DeMaio, Murray Lane. I submitted correspondence, so I'm not going to rehash that. I guess I just want to make a point that not against this technology, not against this use. I think, as I noted in my memorandum, we need to be careful. I don't believe at all it should be a site plan. Everywhere, in every zone in Wallingford that has this allowed as a primary use, it's a special permit. Technology is too new. We don't know where it's going to go. It could grow very fast. It could grow slow. So we just need to be protect the town, protect the commission, protect the residents, and do right for economic development as well. So I think the right way to do that would be through a special permit, not through a site plan. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Seeing none, bring it back to the applicant.
I guess what I'm going to do now is formally request a continuance of the public hearing, 502-23, zoning text amendment, and I would like my application to be heard at the January 2024 monthly meeting. And I hope that we have a quorum. So.
Okay, do Dave, I guess I could make the motion to continue application 502-23 to our January meeting. Need a second?
Second.
Or second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. See you in January.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
You too, thanks.
Police up your area here. All right, moving on. Our next item on our agenda is it's a new business application. It's a new business application for a site plan for multifamily residential units under 830G for V Perretta at 898 Church Street in Yalesville. Again, Mr. Fitzsimmons, if you would please note all correspondence for the record while the applicant begins preparing for his presentation.
It's 300 Church, right? Yeah, sorry.
There's everything.
Yeah, I got it. Sorry. A memo was received from the Office of the Wallingford Fire Marshal dated November 21st, 2023. We received a memo from the Department of Engineering dated November 20th, 2023. We also received a copy of a memo sent by Scott Shipman, Senior Engineer, Wallingford Water and Sewer, to Kevin Bonini, Town Planner, dated November 27th, 2023. We have a copy in the file of a planning and zoning sign-off sheet, and there's indications from the Health Department and Wetlands Commission and Electric Division, and that's dated November 29th, 2023. We have comments from the environmental planner dated November 29th, 2023. We also sent from the office, from the Planning and Zoning Office, a letter to Jeff Ahearn on November 29th, 2023. We also, on the same date, November 29th, 2023, a letter was sent from the office to Jeff Ahearn regarding special permit.
No. We're on number 7. We're on
300 Church Street, no?
no.
Oh, sorry.
No. Here. Number 7, site plan.
Gosh, I'm sorry. 28 North Colony?
It's the 898
Oh, 898. Okay.
Church Street.
Yep, sorry. I apologize. To correct the record, the new attachments are a memorandum from the Office of the Fire Marshal dated November 21st, 2023. A memorandum was sent to the town planner from Water and Sewer dated November 29th, 2023. A copy of a memo was sent to the town planner from the environmental planner on November 29th, 2023. A copy of a planning and zoning sign-off sheet is in the file, checked off by the Health Department and Electric Division on November 29th, 2023. We also have a copy of a memorandum sent from the Department of Engineering on December 4th, 2023, and that is all. Sorry about that.
And also just these things, Jim.
We also have copies of a final affordability plan for 898 Church Street, Wallingford, submitted by Maplewood, received in the office November 9th, 2023. We also received from Giuliano Associates a stormwater drainage report, was received in the Planning and Zoning Office November 9th, 2023, and a stormwater management and open space management plan from Giuliano Associates was received in the office November 9th, 2023, dated June 2nd, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. And if the applicant would please introduce himself and begin his presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Christopher Giuliano. I'm a professional engineer and licensed land surveyor with the firm Giuliano Associates. I maintain an office at 405 Main Street. And with the Commission's indulgence, I'll go up to the board and give my presentation. What we have before you tonight is an application for an 830G multifamily development located at the corner of Route 68, Church Street, and Highland Avenue. For orientation purposes, all my maps basically have Highland Avenue on the right side of the plan, and with Route 68 being here along the bottom. The first sheet I have up is the survey plan to give you an idea of the property. It's roughly about 7¼ acres, predominantly a wet piece of property, and I believe most of the commissioners are familiar with this property. There was an application approximately 20 years ago for a church building that was approved on this site and never got built. Many people have looked at this over the years. Many people have walked away because of the vast amount of wetlands. My client actually came forward and was looking at this piece, wanted to do something with it. We went through everything. He wanted to do actually storage units on it at first because that's what his main business is. And I had to tell him we can't do that in a residential zone. So we eventually looked at multifamily and truthfully, the only way that this could be developed economically is to go through and do an 830G development. I had just gotten done doing another development for him in Meriden with these particular units, this building type on a small piece. I looked at this property and I said, this is probably going to be a good use for that building as well. When I looked at it with regular townhouse-style condos, I couldn't get the number of units to make it viable, too much driveway, too much parking, and we were just too much into the wetlands. So what we ended up doing is taking his building, I have two of them right here in the middle of our only really upland area that's accessible via road. The only other area is up here in the corner and would require a lot of wetlands impact. But we were able to get two buildings right here in the middle, a parking lot with a driveway off of Route 68, a little recreational area with a gazebo and fire pit behind the building. And you'll see that we do have our stormwater management area here in the front with pulling utilities off of Highland Avenue. So when we get right down to it, in the site development plan, you can see the site plan is quite simplistic. We've stayed out of the wetlands. We've limited the amount of grading. These are slab-on-grade buildings, so we're not digging down into a foundation. But as part of the wetlands application, we did have to do test pits out here. So we did test pits, one in each building location, two in the parking lot, and two within the detention area. And remarkably, for such a wet year that we've had this year, that area was dry. This upland area was dry down to about 7 feet, which, to be quite honest, kind of surprised me considering how wet this property is every year, whether it rains or whether it is dry and we're in a drought. I grew up in this area, so I know this area well. And it was shocking that we ran into such good conditions. But as I stated, we're pulling utilities off of Highland Avenue, water and sewer. And as you saw in the packet, there was a memorandum from the fire marshal and from Scott Shipman from Water and Sewer, and we actually have made changes to the water and sewer configuration based upon comments of the fire marshal. He wanted the hydrant located in this island. Originally we had it over here in this island. So we flopped the utilities around, and I know you have these latest drawings in your packets. So I was able to meet with the fire marshal, take care of a concern about being able to deal with fire trucks on this site. And in doing that, I contacted Scott Shipman. We worked out the utility configuration as well. There are other water and sewer comments, but those mostly have to do with what's going on in the building, connection fees, which really don't impact my plans. But all that will be addressed before building permits are obtained. With respect to the fire marshal's comments, as I said, I met with Kevin and Brian, and we have a location here on the east side of the property, right along the parking lot, where I've removed the curb, installed a grass paved system, which we've used here in the past, and I basically have an area where the fire truck, the largest fire truck they have, can pull off the pavement, do a K-turn by backing up along the parking lot, and then pull out. Fire marshal was very happy with this because it avoided him having to try to turn around inside the road. As we all know, Route 68 is busy in this area. It's busy up and down the full length of it. And even with the light here at this intersection, turning around fire apparatus and emergency vehicles in Route 68 would not be the best thing. So when I got the call about the meeting and the concern, I immediately sketched something out, walked into that meeting with Kevin and Brian, and had a plan in hand. And it was a plan that Brian looked at. I gave him the literature regarding grass pavers. They are a company that's done a lot of work in this. They actually specialize in fire apparatus in their product. And like I said, it's a product I used early in the 90s down at Old Village Commons off of Ward Street Extension. If you recall that, we do have fire lanes that connect some of the dead-end driveways there, so fire vehicles can turn around. So it is a proven product that we have used in the past. Other than that, it's a very simple site plan. We have a detention basin along our parking lot, so stormwater flows will basically flow right from the parking lot into our stormwater basin. We have a perforated standpipe at the western end that'll allow flows to come right down through into a level spreader back onto our property where they eventually flow westerly and then down to a culvert under Route 68 where they continue to head south. As far as any stormwaters that are not getting into our stormwater management plan, we do have a set of catch basins here to keep water out of Route 68 to the maximum extent possible. And then this westerly basin is also a sediment chamber, so anything on the road we'll catch before it ends up in the wetland. So we are taking care of everything with respect to stormwater and erosion controls on site. God bless you. Again, with respect to sedimentation and erosion control, site is very flat, so there's not a great deal that we need to do here. Primarily, we have our construction entrance coming off of Route 68. We are wrapping silt fence around our construction and even along Route 68. We have shown sidewalks running from the intersection of Highland Ave across our frontage and all the way down to Shire Drive. It basically connects with the sidewalk that's down on Shire Drive. There are no sidewalks to the north along Highland Avenue in this area, so it didn't make sense to continue sidewalks in that direction. Plus, we have this large wetland right up against the road, so I knew that was going to be a fight with wetlands. At least in this area, a little bit more viable, and we were able to get that through the Wetlands Commission with a little bit of fanfare, but we're able to get that. With respect to site lighting, we basically are just lighting up our parking lot, front of the buildings, and then the back with a couple bollard lights. With all the amount of trees around the side, will definitely not be impacting our neighbors to the north. We do not have any light trespass going onto state property or even the road, since our lights are basically up along the parking lot. We have this 50-foot swath of open space, if you want to call it that, which are a detention basin, and we'll be having our street trees across the front, which will also help us disperse some of that light from the neighbors across the street on Route 68. So, as I said, it's a pretty simplistic site plan for what's going on. It's an 830G development, something that this town needs more of as we move forward, especially with the housing market the way it is. And this is kind of I believe, a really good use for this property, because something should be done on the property, or, in last case scenario, be bought by the town for open space, because we can't put regular style houses on it, and I don't think anyone's going to come here and build a church. That's been tried, and nothing has really happened to date. So, with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sure, if you could go through, because I was looking at the plans and just how the units are laid out, and quite frankly, I know most of the buildings are 3-story. There's a portion that's just 1-story, and I take it there's 2 buildings, there's 22 units, so there's 11 units in each building. And I was looking at your plans trying to figure that all out.
Okay.
When I was looking, it appears that on the first floor, they're essentially efficiency apartments, is that correct? And on the second and third floor, that's where you have the actual 1-bedroom apartments. Is that, if you could just explain that to me, because again, I was looking through it and said, I can't figure it out.
Okay.
Perhaps if you could just put your map up there that has the buildings, the layout of the buildings.
Let me see if I do believe I have that. Let me see if I have.
If not, you can take mine and put it up there. And
I will do that then.
I think that's all the pages.
So, as was stated, and you stated it very correctly, Mr. Secretary, there are 11 units per building. So, basically what we have is 4 units in the main part of the building on the first floor. This bump out is actually a 2-story unit. So so you have your entry here, and you have the living space, the bedroom above, living space, and kitchen below. So each one of these units, and then I believe one is the handicap unit in each building.
But those would essentially be efficiency units. I mean, you're mentioning, they're 1-bedroom units, but I don't really see how they're 1 bedroom on the first floor. To me, they look like an efficiency unit
I believe
rather than a
they are
1-bed.
considered an efficiency unit, but the way Wallingford works for parking and everything, it's efficiency in 1 bedroom, so we can lump them together.
I understand that. It was just when I was looking at the affordability plan, when you were talking about the affordable units being 1 bedroom, I'm saying, I don't see how they're 1 bedroom, in fact, that they're essentially efficiency units. And I'm not arguing whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just, when I was looking at your plan and then reading the affordability, document, it described those as 1-bedroom units. Again, maybe it's just me, but I'm looking at the plan saying, those don't look like 1-bedroom units.
Okay. And on the first floor, the 4 units are efficiencies.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you also, the way the affordability works as well, as you're well aware, we can't just make all the efficiencies the affordable units. We have to spread it out. So some of them,
I guess maybe I'm backing up. That's my question. What are the affordable units?
Okay.
Which ones are those? If you could identify those on the plans, that'd be that clears up my. I'm stumbling around here.
no,
so.
that's fine. And with a rental style, and that's what these are, rental styles, we will identify the affordable units at the beginning, which particular units. But the way the rental works and the way the affordability works is if an affordability unit becomes vacant, we have to fill it or to become available. We can move the affordability around. So once we set the initial affordability units, it's not like I'll just flip back and I'm just going to pick this unit 4 just for saying, let's say when we start unit 4 is in this particular building is an affordable unit. That doesn't mean for the 40 or 50 years that this is going is that unit 4 will always be the affordable unit. It could move. It could move to 2. It could move to one of the ones upstairs. We always have to maintain the ratio, as you're well aware, for I think it's 15% at 80% value and 15 at the 60% value. But with rental units, it can move depending upon what comes available at the time and how things are structured. So there is some leeway on the rental side where a particular unit isn't always designated. However, when these are built, we will designate the units for the particular style, being the efficiencies on the main floor, and then being the 1-bedrooms, which are actually, again, 2 stories. As you see, there are 6. And their bedrooms are actually up on the 3rd floor, as you noticed. So the bedrooms are up top. So again, the 1 unit off the side is a 2-story up and down, kind of I'll call it a townhouse style. The units on the 2nd and 3rd floor, the 6 units there, are the same style. Your living room is on the 2nd floor, your bedrooms are up on the 3rd floor, and then you have the 4 efficiencies.
Because I know one of the things is, just to kind of go back, that the commission always wanted to, or was interested in seeing, was that there wasn't a great deal of disparity between the affordable units and, the market rent units. So they're interdispersed, so you don't have, let's say, all of your efficiencies being, for affordable. That it's mixed in within the development, which would bring me, I guess, to another question: is in your affordability plan, you're talking about the affordable units being 1 bedroom, So I guess that would say that none of the efficiency, while you mentioned you can move things around, so none of those efficiencies then would be affordable. It would only be the one-bedroom units that would be affordable, correct?
I believe your interpretation is correct. I didn't write the affordability.
Well, no, I
plan.
understand,
So
but you're presenting it.
Yes, I understand that. So I get to be the one to put.
So
I get to be the one to put my foot in
Yeah,
my mouth.
I just want to, again, I just want to make sure that I understand that, so we're not looking at just the affordable units saying, well, those are just the efficiencies, that in fact, the affordable units would in fact be one-bedroom units.
The way the affordability plan is written, and that is the official document, it's saying, my interpretation is it's saying one-bedroom units, so it'll be the one-bedroom units.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, like I said, that,
No, you can
that
mix
an
them-
efficiency wouldn't at some point come online as an affordable unit, but it.
But it wouldn't be I don't want to get into the argument on it.
Right,
but
I get that. That may just be semantics when it comes to it, but the way it's written, and I believe you are correct, we are talking about the
Yeah, I mean,
affordable
this
units
is
being
how-
up the other.
Yeah, this is
not
how
being
this is
efficiencies.
how it's being presented.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's how it was written. So I will agree with you, and no, I don't believe the statute would allow us just to say these lower ones on the lower ones, which are efficiencies, are going to be our affordable units, because you're right, they wouldn't be at the same rate baseline as the other units. There would be a disparity there. I think that's right. So we have to keep that. We at most could probably only have one or two efficiencies if they are considered part of the affordability plan, with the other numbers being the one bedrooms. What I'm trying to say is we couldn't just put all the affordables into the efficiencies and call it a day. The state would come down on us, and I would imagine the town would too, because they would not be considered equal in the eyes of the law, basically. I know we kind of beat around that, but I agree with you. The way it's written is that the one-bedroom units will be
And the other, and I guess just the other thing is, again, you have 7 units that are going to be affordable. Based on the plan here, it says that 4 of those units would be at the 80%, 3 would be at the 60%. And again, I guess I always come back to when we talk about affordable, and I know the last application that we had, which certainly I support all the commission members did, to me, they're always kind of this little bit of a misnomer, about affordable, and, sometimes we think, oh, gee, in this particular case, I think the one-bedroom units are $1,500 a month. For, a lot of people, you may say, oh, that's affordable. For a lot of other people, it's not affordable. So while it's only one unit, I'd like to see the difference being, 80% at 3 units and the 60% at 4 units. So you're making at least a little bit more of the project a little bit more affordable for someone.
Okay.
And I know that's what's being presented in the plan, but you're the gentleman making the presentation. And I suspect you may not have a lot of, you may not be able to commit to certain things, but
Can we put that as a discussion?
Absolutely.
Between the applicant and Kevin to be worked out? Because, as I said, Attorney Sanavia wrote it. I was not part of the discussion. I'm just a dumb engineer and a land surveyor at this point. So, but I am the guy up here representing.
Exactly.
So if that could be flopped, and as you said, 4 at the 60, 3 at the 80, and still work out appropriately, then, I understand the ask. And if it were me and I knew more about it, I wouldn't hesitate, but I can't commit to someone else's money.
I completely understand that. And I have just one other comment to make, and then I'll let other commission members. Because again, I'm looking at your affordability plan, and you're saying that the affordable housing units for at least, if they're going to be affordable for at least 40 years. So when you have at least in there, I would take it that you're open to discussing having those units being affordable for more than 40 years.
That is always on the table because, as I know, from doing past projects, 50 years seems to be very common, just as common as 40. I hate to say it, but I probably won't be around in those 40 or 50 years. So to me, it doesn't matter. The applicant, it might not matter. That's definitely something that,
Well, I think it's something that needs to be discussed because I guess my opinion would be, I think the issue with affordable housing will become more of an issue as the years pass rather than less of an issue. So if we feel that there's a need for affordable housing, and there is a need for affordable housing today, I suspect in the future years there'll be more of a need for affordable housing. And we could be faced with a position with affordable housing that we've constructed, all of a sudden will be coming off and only be market rate housing. So what have we accomplished?
you're right. You're 100% right. And thinking long term, it makes sense to look at it and have a discussion because while we've all made a push locally to do this, eventually all these units are going to start rolling off, and then
you will never be at our 10%.
Never even be close. And I'm not sure. I think we're 7.
I think we're only about 4.5, 4.7.
Are we that low? I thought we were a little higher.
I think it's 4.2, I think.
Yeah, we were up a lot higher, and then I think just units might have come off, or something occurred, because I think 2-3 years ago we were at about 7%.
Yeah, that's the number I remember.
But I think now it's 4 something.
Okay.
But anyway, I digress. I'm sure there's other commission members that have comments and questions for the applicant. So other commission members? Mr. Fitzsimmons. Oh.
Couple of questions. Sounds like these are primarily one-bedroom and efficiencies. Wondering if you're expecting families with children.
It is always a possibility. I can't say no, especially considering the way the economy and the housing market is at this time. But because these are efficiencies in one bedroom, it does not lend itself to that demographic. This is more the, let's call it the young professional. Someone gets out of college, decides they're going to move out of mom and dad's house, they want their first apartment. That's what this is for. You also have the person that's downsizing and wants something very small, still working. This is something for them as well. It doesn't fit the family demographic. It really doesn't, because you just don't have the extra bedroom for another child or 2 children. So there is that. If we had a mix of efficiencies, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom, I would be more inclined to say we would have families, but based upon the type of units, that's not what's anticipated. This is the young professional or the person who's downsizing, from a house to something very small, I shouldn't say very affordable, maybe very affordable for them, but possibly still working. It's kind of an intermediate step. Your kids have gone, don't need a house, you don't need a yard to maintain. This may be something for them in that case.
Appreciate that. And related to that, if it was a place where we're expecting children to be there, I'm very concerned about, as you said, quote, a little recreational area. Because kids need room to play. I know adults need to too, but they hopefully would have access to parks and other things. But I was concerned the recreation area seems very, very small.
As I said, I grew up in this area. Basically, I'm a Gen Xer, so I was one of those kids. We got together, we rode on our bikes, we went out in the morning, we were home by the time streetlights came on. Parents never knew where we were. Where were we? We were in places like this, in the woods, in the wetlands, running through this. And this area, and like I said, I grew up in this area. This area has been developed, since 70s and 80s, so I've seen it change. But I was all over this area. As a kid, this is where I would be. That's where I expect kids to be. Yes, it's a wet area. We have an upland area back here. Behind the units, like I said, we do have that patio and gazebo and fire pit. So there are places, and we're not far from the schools either. Highland School is down the road, maybe quarter of a mile. It is walkable. You can ride a bike. There are fields over there to play. So, again, if there were to be a child here or a couple of children, they have a place to explore. And, you know, like I said, the school's not far either. So it's not like this is a 1 acre site or 2 acre site where we're putting this and then there's just nothing around it. They do have an area to kind of be.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's more of, I think, a bigger picture thing. Even when people buy a home, for example, many people want even a small property because they like to be outside of the house sometimes. And it just doesn't seem like there's much property at all for people to be outside the property. Otherwise, they're on Route 68. And I live in that area, and I can certainly say that there are times where I really decide whether I want to go for a bike ride on Route 68 in spite of the good breakdown lane and shoulder area there. So, you know, I would say that I would be certainly appreciative of any reconsiderations of the plan of where reasonable recreation spaces can be. I know there's been some crosswalks put in recently to help with some of getting across to the schools, but you know, I think that if you're going to ask people to be there and that be their new home, that might be something to consider. One final, just quick question. This could be ignorance on my end. I see that this is church property. Is it on the tax rolls as commercial property, or is it off tax rolls?
This property is owned by a church, and therefore it is not taxable. I believe it is not taxable under its current ownership. So hopefully when this gets approved, my client will then excise his option, and this will come on back on the tax rolls as a taxable piece of property.
Be more comfortable with something stronger than hope, though.
Well, I never count my chickens before they're hatched. Again, this is a unique piece of property. I would never walk into a commission knowing or thinking I was going to get an approval that night. It's always a hope I get an approval. But my client will exercise his options, and this will come on the tax. As soon as he does, this comes back on the tax rolls. And with an approved plan, it's not going to be taxed as open space either. It gets taxed as a higher value. So it's going from nothing to something on the tax rolls.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Other commission members? Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple questions. I did not see a memo from the Planning and Zoning Office. Is there no comments?
No, I just had a meeting with Mr. Giuliano regarding the safety issues. I didn't have other comments besides the submission of the affordability plan that was missing for 4 months, I think. So I've been waiting on that to receive it, and I didn't have anything else besides comments at staff meetings. That's pretty much it, I guess.
I guess through you, Mr. Chairman, does the submitted affordability plan become a condition? Because it's site plan, not special permit. It's been a while, and I just was unsure. Does this go with the record, or is it?
Yeah, that would have to be submitted. I just missed that in the motion, so that would have to be submitted as part of the application, just submission of the final affordability plan. If the commission would like to make changes to it, though, I'd probably recommend continuing it because it's an 830G. You can do that for as long as they're amenable to that.
Yeah, if I could, through you, Mr. Chair, it's just mechanical for me. I'm thinking the affordability. I assume it goes with this application.
Correct.
Is the question. So
it has to be with this application.
Okay.
It could not be received until I receive this affordability plan.
Right. And I guess because reading it, the question would be who would administer the property / does it become, it's up to the applicant to decide to partner with someone or say, we'll determine who can live here, or is it, or could you engage potentially the Wallingford Housing Authority? How does that work?
I believe it is either, it's another entity that does that basically manages the affordability component. There are a few companies that do it. I think there may be a few law firms that do it. I don't think any property owner, applicant, developer, I hate to say it this way, is savvy enough to do it and get through all the red tape on the state level. So it always goes to some other entity. And I know from Sunwood has dealt with someone. Actually, Sunwood did both. Originally it was Ahearn's over on Woodhouse Avenue, but that became Sunwood as well. And I know my applicant, Mr. Perretta, has been talking with Bob Wiedemann about this. And so I think Bob, and Dennis is obviously familiar enough with it, but I know Bob has been directing this applicant down the proper course with respect to managing that affordability plan. And I would believe he would take Bob Wiedemann's advice on who to use and how to do it so that he doesn't follow it up.
Okay. Yeah, the only other comment I had is something that we discussed on other applications. On the plan, I don't see any dumpster or refuge site. And unless I'm not all about the garbage, but it's a tight site, and I'm thinking,
Right.
you know.
And I will admit, until I had the meeting with Kevin and the fire marshal, I didn't have a dumpster located, and I went, oh. So what I did is this area here that we're using for the turnaround, I'm putting a dumpster back here in this location so that a refuse truck can come in, pull in, front load this, use this grass pave area to back up, and go out. So it kind of became double duty, which is a really good thing because the only other place I could have put it is somewhere over here on the western side, but that's where I have a snow storage area. That's where I'm proposing my transformer. It was getting, and I'm closer to the wetlands there, so it was getting a little crowded. So that's why I stuck it back here in the corner. We'll definitely screen it and do all that, but it gets it kind of out of the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Other commission members? Okay, this is a public hearing. Any members of the public like to speak on the application, please come forward with your name and comments. Seeing none, I guess I'd bring it back to the commission as far as any comments. From my perspective, yeah, I'm certainly in favor of the application as far as with affordable housing, but I still have the questions concerning the affordability, concerning your affordability plan as far as are they one bedroom, are going to be, is this plan going to be adhered to? Again, in the plan you said at least 40 years, so when I read that I say the applicant certainly would be receptive to increasing it above 40 years, otherwise it wouldn't have been put in there. And then also just with respect to the mix of the 60-40, I understand you're in an uncomfortable position, not an uncomfortable position, you're just in a position where you can't commit for the, for the applicant as far as what he or she may want to do. It's unfortunate the applicant is not attended the meeting with you because, again, you're not in a position to negotiate. I don't know how other commission members feel, about, the issues, but at least for me, I'd like to see some clarification on that. I'm not one that wants to kick another application to another month, believe me. But on the other hand, at least from my perspective, I'd like some answers or at least some discussion with, in fact, a person that can make the decisions. So I guess I'd leave it up to commission members how they'd like to proceed.
If I can ask a question.
Sure.
That's allowed. Is there any way, Kevin, that we could deal with this outside of the meeting? I honestly don't know because of the nature of the affordability plan. I mean, if there's no way that I can go back with Dennis and the applicant, get the answers so it gets to the commission and straightens it out, if we can't do it, then I have no choice but to ask to be tabled and come back. I mean, next time we're here, it's a 2-minute conversation. I get that. I just know we're going to have a long agenda next month, especially with the applications that got tabled. So I'm just thinking of what's going to happen in January.
I guess with, I don't think you can make any sort of decisions without the commission being there, so.
Okay, no, that's fair enough.
I can't.
Well, again, but I just want to say, we have, 4 other members of the commission that are here, and again, it depends on how other members of the commission may feel. They may, and I would certainly respect that if, they feel that what's being presented is they would feel comfortable with it. So I mean, I make no judgments on anything. These are just my issues. They may not be other people's issues, which is fine.
Yeah, and with respect to the 40 years, I could say yes to that one. That one, it's not, I don't think it has any bearing on the project itself. It comes down to clarifying the 1-bedroom, making sure I interpret it the way you interpret it, the way it's written. So I would have to ask that to be clarified, and then the change in the split, that one I can't say because I don't know the financial numbers on it, and I don't want to commit to something that's going to be harmful to the applicant and not in the.
And I fully understand that. Again, not to drag anything out anymore, but I guess my just question with commission members, how would we like to proceed with this? That's yes, Mr. Cohen, thank you.
So, yeah, since this is an 830G and the affordability plan is a, major component of this, I would get some, solid answers to those questions from the applicant. So I'd be okay with pushing it off to next meeting. And I think, the town planner is absolutely correct. I think, we need those answers to make a reasonable decision.
Anyone else?
I echo his comments that it is unfortunate that the owner of the plant or the developer wasn't here because, I mean, you really are limited. I mean, you're good for making plans and all that stuff. But
You're good for more than that.
Well, okay, but you're good for that. But nobody even gave or could have given you information for which you could have spoken authoritatively. You can't because you don't know the answers. It's not your fault, and it's not your job. So I think, if the person had been here, maybe we could have voted it through tonight. But without him here and without the numbers and all what all this stuff means, that we do have no choice but to continue it over till next month.
Yeah, that's fine. And, Attorney Senaviva, who was here earlier, had asked me, do you think I need to be here? I honestly thought everything was worked out in the affordability plan. So I said, no, I think it's site plan. I can handle it. But, it bit me. So it's okay.
I guess, I think with that, I think the general consensus of the commission is to continue this to our January meeting and yes, perhaps maybe put you first. Anyway.
It won't matter. I'm on a number of things that month too, so it won't matter.
All right. I guess at this point in time, I've entertained a motion to continue this to our January meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue application 227-23 to our January meeting.
We have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Mr. Giuliani. And again, I somewhat apologize for putting you on the spot. All right, Mr. Pagini, if you please just take us home for the rest of the agenda.
Bond releases, 800 North Colony Road. I went out there. That can be released.
Yeah, do we have a motion to release the bond for 800 North Colony Road as recommended by our town planner?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to release the bond for application 207-22, site plan, I Am the Walrus, Tractor Supply, 800 North Colony Road, as suggested by the town planner.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on.
Administrative approvals, any questions on those? ZBA November decisions, any questions on those? And there is no December ZBA meeting. And
All right.
wanted to wish everybody happy holiday.
Well, thank you. And I guess with that, unless there's no other business coming before the commission, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn our December 11th, 2023 meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fitzsimmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Gentlemen, have a good evening and have a very happy holiday season.